Today we're looking at the Numark Mixstream Pro DJ console. This is not a DJ controller, and the reason it's not a DJ controller is that there's no computer involved in this at all. You're DJing using this touch screen here, which has got access to everything you need to DJ without the need to have a laptop in the DJ booth. And because this unit also has built-in Wi-Fi, it means you can access streaming services for your music like Beatport Link, BeatSource Link, SoundCloud Go and Tidal. And because it has built-in speakers, you don't even have to find speakers to plug in as well. So just out of the box with a Mixstream Pro, you can log into millions of tunes, you can get them loaded onto the decks pretty much straight away, and you can be DJing through the built-in speakers. It even has the ability to interface with smart lights in the home. So if you have Philips Hue smart lighting, you can tell this about that, and with the press of one button, it will create a light show based on the music you're using from within this. So that means that for a beginner who wants to unbox something on Christmas Day or whatever and just get going, there's never been something with fewer hurdles, or so the promise goes, than the Numark Mixstream Pro. In today's review, we're going to look at that and see if it lives up to that promise. As ever, look, we're the biggest DJ school in the world. If you want to learn to DJ on this or any other console, the first thing you should do is join us, because by going to digitaldjtips.com/join, you get a copy of our free book, you get a copy of our free gear and software guide, and we can invite you into the community absolutely for free. It is the best thing to do if you're a new DJ wanting to get through the overwhelm and get yourself started on the right track. Right, let's start looking at this unit then. So, when it comes to setting this up, it is as simple as you might guess. You plug the thing in, you turn it on, it takes a few seconds to boot up, and then you're ready to go. Now, Numark advises you do one of three things when you get going. You log into one of the streaming services, I've already mentioned them, and they all have a month's free trial minimum. So that means that you can try Beatport, BeatSource Link, SoundCloud, Go Plus, or Tidal. Unfortunately, this doesn't work with the one you probably use, which is likely to be Spotify, right? Or maybe Apple Music or Deezer. But it does work with some big-ish services. So there might be a decision as to whether you want to switch to one of the services it does support in order to not be paying 2 subscriptions for a streaming service. But once you've got through that hurdle and you've got it logged into a streaming service, then it's very simple on the screen here to browse through all your playlists on that streaming service and look at what you've got available to play and load it to the decks and get started. So it is very, very quick to do that. That said, you can also log into Dropbox and access your music on Dropbox. I'll talk about that in a second. And they've relegated this to the third way of logging in, the third way of actually getting music onto this. You can put your own music onto this. And the way you put your own music onto it is by, around the back, plugging in a USB or a SD card. There's 2 USB sockets around there and also an SD card socket. And you output your music onto that, and then you can play it from here. And if you're going to do that, then the best way to do it is using the software. This is the desktop software that comes as part of this system for free. You get your music all prepared on the software, and you use the sync manager in order to put it onto a card, and then from there you can put it onto the unit, which is the way that DJs who are used to DJing without a laptop using this software or using Rekordbox, which is the Pioneer DJ version of this, will be used to doing. But as I say, Numark has relegated that to the third way you might want to do this in all their literature and all the stuff you see when you open the box, because they're expecting DJs to use this primarily with a streaming service. And of course, the reason for that is that it's pretty cheap. It comes in at £500, $600 euros. It's about half the price of any comparable system that runs this software, and therefore it's in a totally different bracket of people who would likely to be using it. If you're spending 4 figures on a DJ system, you've probably got your own music collection. You're probably going to be happy using laptop software to get it on there. But if not, if you're buying a system as a Christmas present for someone or as a birthday present, or indeed you just want to dabble in DJing, this is going to be more in your ballpark, which is why they're pushing streaming first. It's a bold thing to do. Now, if you want to put music from your Dropbox on there, again, you're better off on this laptop here. We've got that software running that I've shown you before. You're better off using this to export that music onto Dropbox, because that means that the unit will have all your playlists and all the stuff it needs to work out already worked out before you get going. So, once you've got your music on there and you're playing, what's it like to use? Well, this is not actually new technology insofar as the software this is running, as I just mentioned, is called Engine. It's called Engine DJ OS, and that also runs in Denon DJ consoles like this. So Denon DJ has had out for several years now the Prime Go, which is a small console that I've used personally a lot, the Prime 2, which is a 2-channel DJ system, which is arguably the closest to this one, and the Prime 4, which has got 4 channels. This has got 2 physical channels. And so this is pretty close to using the Prime 2, but it's a more consumer unit, it's at a lower price point, but that said, it's actually very, very good, and in some ways it's nicer than using the very portable Prime Go, which was the kind of like darling of the range when those 3 were released. Everyone really wanted one and didn't know why, because it was very small, but this has got bigger jog wheels, it's a slightly bigger unit overall. It might be Numark, but the build quality is pretty good on this. So when you're DJing with this, it turns out it's got pretty much everything you want as long as you're happy to DJ with 2 channels. Let's have a little talk around what we've got here. So jog wheels, big, nice feeling. They've got the nudge at the side, they've got a scratch at the top. This is all exactly as you would expect. No problems at all with these. You know, Numark jog wheels for many years have been absolutely fine. You get 4 pads instead of 8, but by touching the button here twice, it'll cycle to a flashing mode where you get 4 more. So this is our first cues. These are all here ready to use, and if you press the button again, you get the other set of cues. So we actually do have 8 pads, but you just have to press the button twice. So we have cue, we have saved loops, we have auto loop, and we have loop roll here. These all work exactly as you would expect them to work on any DJ system, so there's no surprises at all there. The speakers down here, which are of course where you might expect to find the other pads, they're a little bit strange, I have to say. You know, you forget about them after a while. It just seems like a strange place to have the speakers. I would have expected to have them at the top here, but that's the design choice they've made. There is the advantage that there's 2 speakers in there, one of which is pointing right up towards the DJ. So that in a way could be a good thing, but it is a bit of a curious choice there for where the speakers are. Far more usual is to have our vertical controls here, play, pause, cue, and the sync button, and the decks are not mirror image as some DJ units are. These are an exact copy of each other, which is kind of like a nice layout when you're getting to a slightly bigger controller. The pitch controls are a little bit short, but actually they work fine, because by using the pitch range, by holding down shift and pressing these buttons here, you can make this as granular as ±4%, and at that point you can do some very fine adjustments if you want to do manual beat mixing with this. And the mixer section in the middle is pretty good. It's got a 3-band EQ, which is always good to see. Individual levels, you can switch the VU meters to go for either the decks or the master output, which is nice to see. You didn't have that on the Prime Go, for instance. You've got your headphones monitoring here, left and right. The other controls here are pretty limited. So the paddles are quite nice for the effects, but the effects echo, delay, flanger, phaser are not the best insofar as you don't get very much control over them. They've just got on-off basically, so there's no wet dry and there's no time parameter there. By the way, there's a much longer video that we've made alongside this one, which is a video manual of this unit, a training tutorial where I spent an hour and a half going through every single button, dial, option in the screens, knob, everything you can do on the faders and so on, the whole lot. So if you're waiting for one of these that you've ordered, or you really want to look at what it does before you buy it, or indeed if you've got one and you want to know how to use it better, do go and look at that. It's the Numark Mixstream Pro training tutorial and video manual, and there's a link under here. This is more of an overview review video. So again, if you want to see this stuff, I go into a lot of detail. I'll talk you through all the buttons and all the effects and everything. We actually listen to them all. I show you all that stuff in that video. Treat this video as an overview. Okay, so the effects are limited. That said, the paddles are pretty good. So the paddles, you can turn an effect on like that momentarily, or lock it on. These are quite nice, but what I don't like, as I said, is the fact that they're very simple effects and they're only on or off. And I think they should have had a reverb and dropped either the flanger or the phaser. And because you don't get any ability to change how these effects work, the delay, for instance, just gives you one delayed version of the signal, and that's it. So pretty limited in what you can do there. You'll probably end up using your favorite of the flanger or phaser and the echo and nothing else here. It does have filters, even though they're not showing on here, and that's because they're at the top here, which might be a strange place to have your filter control, but actually, you know, who cares? It works, they sound great. You can adjust the resonance in the settings, by the way. But again, just slightly non-standard. I think it's because they couldn't squash everything in here and the screen, so they had to push some stuff to the sides. Also pushed to the sides, we have the microphone, the headphones volume and mix control here, which is headphones from Q to master, and the volume as well. What's really nice is this actually has a split Q for your headphones, which will put the master down one and the Q'd audio source down the other, which is unusual to find on any DJ systems like this, and it's set by software, but it is there. You can set it in the settings, so I did like to see that in there. So moving back to what we've got here then, we've got our little buttons here which just let you access the control panels, which let you change a lot of stuff about the way this works. So in here we have this control area here, and from here you can move through various user settings. Now this font is very, very small, and for me quite hard to read. This software here, Engine DJ, it is both the strength and in this case a little bit of a weakness of the unit. It's the strength of the unit because just like when you buy a Windows computer, it doesn't matter if you spent 500 or 3,000 on that Windows computer, probably going to be running exactly the same operating system, right? If you were to buy the Denon DJ top-end system components like we've got here that you'll see fitted in DJ booths, they're running the same software as this. So here, just like in a cheap Windows computer, you're getting all the functionality. The bad side of this is almost like you buy a Windows computer with a small, low resolution screen compared to one with a really big, nice screen. Well, that's what's going on here. And as I said, one of the things is the font size is a little bit small. It's not so bad here, to be honest with you, but you do have to, if you're a little bit older like me and you've got glasses, you might find yourself squinting to read it. Luckily, in the library view, you can choose whether you have the font big like this, which is easy for hopefully anyone to read, or you can make it small. By the way, these are demo tracks we're looking at. I haven't actually plugged any music into this. It comes with demo tracks, so you really can start messing around with it straight out of the box. This is definitely going to help dealers who've got some tracks on there at all times to show people when they're showing them how it works. So overall then, using it is fine. Using all the stuff I've shown you is fine. It's smooth, it's snappy, it's fun to use. The pads are nice, the layering's a little bit difficult, but it's okay. Navigating stuff is fine. The software's very proven, it works well. You've got waveforms on here, but the waveforms don't have to be there's two tracks loaded there. They don't have to be horizontal like this. If you don't like them horizontal, you can hold down the shift button and press view, and you can switch to a vertical waveform, which also gives you the library in the middle. So this might be a view that some people like. Now, talking about the library, you can arrange your music in here. You can make playlists, even using streaming services. You can preview the tracks by tapping on the little piece of artwork, and then they'll come through your headphones. But the stuff you do with the playlisting isn't kind of kept. So you can't put that back to your software and then have it part of your master playlist area here. So while that's useful, it does need a bit of developing, I think. I wouldn't want to do a lot of work on my playlist in the unit because it's going to be hard to keep those playlists. And also, when you're DJing with streaming services, you still miss some of the functionality that you would expect to have. So you can't mess with the beat grids, for instance, in here with streaming services. You can't reorder playlists in here with streaming services in the way that you can do both of those things with your own music. So while they're pushing streaming first, it's not quite there once you get past casual use. But that is the beauty of these kind of systems. This can all be updated in software. And the software updates come over the air, they come over Wi-Fi. So it's very easy for Engine DJ, the software in here, to push Wi-Fi updates to you, and by tapping one button, you can have the latest stuff in here. So what is the sound like through these speakers? Obviously I've just played a bit of music, but it's hard to tell through my lapel microphone what they sound like. They sound okay. I have got, you know, the kind of beer can speakers at home. We've got a JBL Charge, which is kind of a slightly bigger than normal sized beer can speaker. It sounds nicer than this. There's no getting around it. These speakers have got a bit of bass, but they're not quite there for anything other than practicing at home. Maybe a very small, like, you know, single figure party. You could maybe get away with it, but honestly, they're okay. That's the best I can say for them. But you can plug your own speakers in the back. There's a speaker volume control here. You don't have to use the built-in ones. It's more really because there's nothing in your way of DJing. You turn the thing on and the speakers are there. And a lot of the time, preparing music, just having it playing a few tunes in the background and so on, that might be okay. But I do feel like, you know, with the space they've got in the case here, the speakers could sound nicer. And this is from someone who's reviewed an awful lot of those small speakers. That said, this thing's built to a cost, so you've got to take that into account as well. The beauty about this is, which is something I wasn't expecting, that when you do want to plug your own speakers into this unit, you've actually got a few choices at the back, unusually, because we can not only plug in unbalanced RCA speakers, but we have the sockets here to plug in an XLR, pair of XLR cables for balanced audio all the way out to a PA system, for instance. And I think that's quite a surprising thing to find in a unit like this, and also quite a welcome thing to find. So there is the chance of plugging this in and using it in a pro environment, and it doesn't look too out of place. I've got to say again, it feels sturdy, it's not going to break, it might be built to a budget, it might not be all metal like the Denon DJ units, but it actually feels really well built, and I don't think you're going to have any reliability problems with this, judging from other Numark gear from recent releases, which is also punching above its weight really as far as the build quality goes, because frankly a lot of pro DJ gear is built to standards that are no higher than this, certainly on first appearances and playing with it. Now, the next question then is this right for you? Is this something you should be buying rather than the alternatives? Well, we need to consider what the alternatives are. So the first alternative to buying an all-in-one unit like this, spending £500, $600 or euros on something like this, is to get something a little bit more expensive that's a little bit more pro. So your options within the other DJ systems that run engine would be the Denon DJ Prime Go and the Denon DJ Prime 2, both of which are going to push you into four figures to buy, both of which are more professional than this, more professional inputs and outputs, more professional controls. But that said, this is easier and probably more fun to DJ on than the Prime Go, because the Prime Go is a bit of a specialist unit with its tiny jog wheels and even more non-standard layout than this. The Prime 2, all-round better experience than this, but it still has the same 7-inch screen, so you're not getting any benefits on either of those two units I've just mentioned on screen size than you're getting here. No easier to view, no easier to use, and yet you're paying an awful lot more for that. So for many people, especially if you're not too bothered about effects, this is going to be the most sensible unit out of them. That said, if you're planning on DJing out and you need some of the microphone inputs, some of the better quality outputs and so on that you get with those systems, they might be worth saving up and spending the extra on. And of course, you're going to need speakers. And one of the things with speakers is, especially down at the beginner end of the market, when you're considering spending on something like this, it's quite hard to find portable speakers that will work with a unit like this, because even if you find a speaker which can take a wire from the back into your unit, and it's very important to wire speakers in, you can't use Bluetooth and stuff like that. Even if you could, the latency means that mixing is going to be very difficult, so you need a wire. But even those speakers that you can buy, as I mentioned, from names like JBL and Bose and so on, the kind of beer can speakers, the kind of modern speakers that everyone's got, even if they do accept a wire, most of them nowadays still have latency. What you do on here doesn't come out the speaker at the same time, and that is a no-no for DJing. So even finding smaller speakers that work nowadays is a challenge. So for that reason, if you're just thinking of buying a unit as your first unit and you don't really want to have to mess with that stuff, this is probably better than saving up the extra money for definitely the Prime Go and maybe the Prime 2, unless you want to DJ out on it or you're a bit more serious and you're going to buy monitor speakers like the ones I've got behind me, in which case it might be worth spending the extra on a more professional unit like that. The other piece of competition for something like this is just a simple DJ controller. Now, I've been at pains not to call this a controller. I've called it a console or a system throughout this review, and that's what we do at Digital DJ Tips, because a controller by definition controls DJ software, and that isn't what this does. This is an all-in-one console. But if you already own a laptop and if you already own speakers, then buying a controller which is simply a way of interfacing with DJ software to make it more fun, to give you these kinds of controls so you're not using keyboard shortcuts and all that lame stuff to control the DJ software. If you buy a DJ controller and you plug it into your speakers and headphones, they've got built-in audio interfaces as well, DJ controllers, then it could just be that it's a lot cheaper for you to go down that route. Because, for instance, Numark have got great controllers at around $200. The Numark Pro FX and Platinum FX are great controllers, and they work with Serato DJ, which is great software. You'd have to buy the software as well, but even if you bought the controller and the software, it will come in a few hundred less than buying one of these. And as I say, if you've already got a laptop and you're happy to DJ with a laptop and you've already got speakers, that might well be a better route to go down, because you're not buying effectively another computer, which is what this has got built into it. And of course, that software lets you access all the streaming services and so on as well. But this is a slightly different sell. You know, this has got the lighting control built in as well. And as we've said all the way through, it's more immediate using this because you've got the speakers, because you've got Wi-Fi to get onto the streaming services. You can actually DJ with this without ever going near a laptop if you don't want to, with the proviso that it is limited in some of the ways that I've suggested. So that's a Numark Mixstream Pro. If you are new to DJing and you want one box that does it all, you can't go wrong with this. It's a great start. If it also worked with DJ software, and this has got a socket on the back that lets you plug in a computer, but there's no reason to plug that computer in right now because this currently doesn't work with any DJ software. If it also worked with DJ software, Virtual DJ, Serato, Tractor, whatever, it would be an absolute no-brainer purchase, because then you'd have the best of all worlds. You'd have the immediacy of the speakers, the immediacy of the built-in Wi-Fi and streaming services and computer and screens. And if you wanted, you could plug it into DJ software on your laptop. But even as it is now, I think they're going to shift lots and lots of these for good reason, because there is currently no easier way to get started in DJing than the Numark Mixstream Pro. It's broken down so many barriers. No need to have your own music collection. No need to buy speakers and make sure they're the right type, get them plugged in and working. And if you want to have fun and have a light show going on in your own home, if you've got a couple of those Philips Hue lights and a Philips Hue hub, you press a button on here and it works with them. Hell, if you're a pro DJ and you're a producer, this thing even works with Ableton Link, and the reason it does comes back to what I said earlier. That software in there is the same software that runs on 100% Pro gear like this stuff. You're getting the same experience for the first time at an extremely low price point for what you get. So that's the Numark Mixstream Pro. To remind you, we have a full hour and a half training tutorial and video manual on this. The link is underneath. There's also a link underneath to our news piece that goes into more detail about exactly what this is, the price, where to get it, and so on. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have and you want to learn to DJ with the world's leading online DJ school, then head to digitaldjtips.com/join. You can have a copy of the book on us as a thank you for joining us, and it's totally free. So hopefully see you there. But meanwhile, from Phil here in the Digital DJ Tips studio, get good, get out there, make the moments, and I'll see you very soon.